How are you doing, Krista?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
All right, I'm going to call to order the December Disadvantaged Business Enterprise and Workforce Advisory Committee meeting. And welcome all of our committee members and alternates who are in attendance today. Again, we did get this note the change that future meetings from here on forward, we are going to Teams. I know this meeting previously, when it's virtual, has been conducted through WebEx. The council will be conducting this meeting from now on through Teams. But just as with WebEx, same protocols, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. If you're having technical issues, let us know in the chat. And please close all other teleconference applications. Meeting handouts and the presentation are posted to the project website at swlrt.org. And we can start with the first order of business, which is, well, I would say roll call, but we will be keeping attendance via the sign-in for, or the virtual sign-in from the meeting. But the first order of business is a review of minutes. I know we had some comments prior. The meeting minutes went out along with the agenda. Are there any further edits, questions, comments relative to the minutes?
Ashante, it's Barb. When I sent that out, it might have been confusing. I still wanted, I still think it's important to talk about the workforce stuff that Jolynn mentioned. I didn't mean to replace that with a new thing, just to add the new thing.
Got it. So just for clarity, there was an edit to the minutes, and it was not to replace the whole thing. It was to add that component that you commented on. So we will get those corrected as well. And so we won't approve them officially, but we will, the correction is noted and we will get those corrected.
Thanks,
And
Ashante.
sent out. All right, with
nice
that.
job. Sorry, real quick, I was going to let you know I agree with Barb's comments. I was going to be sending a note also, but thank you, Barb. Great job.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good conversation, and I made sure, you know, I got the recording for that meeting so that I could listen to Jolynn's comments and some of her, and sharing her experience a couple times over, so I fully understand some of the, you know, barriers that our small businesses encounter, because I want to communicate that correctly to our leadership and to those who, you know, ultimately can influence decision policy here at the council. I think it's important that they understand it and know the impacts to small business. So yes, thank you. All right. With that, I will turn it over to Co-Chair Elaine Valadez. Guess I didn't check. Is Elaine on? If
I'm
not,
sorry.
we can go. We can.
No, I was checking off the attendees and
Gotcha.
didn't realize I was muted. Do I need to call them out?
No, I think as I noted, you can just note them based on the attendance off of the virtual meeting. I was just going to say we can move into the civil project update.
Okay, I thought that Barb wanted a discussion on the minutes, or should we wait on that?
We already did
We
that.
did.
Sorry, I was checking off. I'm sorry, people. Now, I think we can go into the project updates. John, do you want to do the presentation on, the project office? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey, Elaine, it's James McKowiak. I'm here to do that project overview. Yep. All right. Thanks, Jason. I know you're on the other end. So again, this is in Hopkins, right on the border of 5th and Catel Avenue, south of the new 17th extension, Excelsior. It's the Minnetonka Hopkins Bridge looking south from that 5th Catel connection. And this is a pocket track. And that pocket track is important, and you can see how far advanced it is, but that pocket track is important because that runs alongside the bridge, and it's just to the west of the Hopkins Rail Support Facility that's being constructed. And, without an OMF, we can't do the repairs, but what we can do is send a train to pull disabled vehicles off of the track and pocket them here on this small sidetrack. So that's been nearly completed. Now we're moving quite a ways just off of Lake Street. That is one of the vertical circulators. There's one on the east and the west side. And I love that photo. You can just see the scale of it with bucket loaders and the size of the men in the buckets. Again, looking from Lake Street Bridge, looking north, that is the Kenilworth West Portal. You can see how far advanced we are, about 95% done with the tunnel construction of the structure. Again, at the Kenilworth Tunnel, you can see we're continuing to forming walls, continuing on that west end to form the roof line as well. Again, there's an example. Speaking of that, the roof pour. Again, great photos just to show you the scale of construction, the complications of construction here as they do the ceilings and the waterproofing at the west head. Again, pulling rail, West 21st Street. I'll make a shameless plug. If you follow our project and our construction update every 2 weeks, we usually do kind of a video to mark project milestones and other features of construction. Tomorrow we will publish a rail milestone, and we will talk in some detail if you're interested about the rails. I mean, you're looking at a piece of rail here. They come from Pueblo, Colorado, and each one is about 800 feet long and weighs about 30,000 pounds. So we're about 95% done with rail as well from tip to tail. We just have about 4,300 feet left in the Kenilworth corridor, and we hope to get that done as soon as we can next year. And then at some point next year, move cars, working cars down from Franklin OMF to the west side to facilitate early testing in 2025. Again, going north from there, that was around 21st Street. That last photo here, you can see the installed rail continues with the ties and the rail and the ballast at Bryn Mawr Station in Minneapolis. New trail crossing at Bryn Mawr. Also, as we move forward, this whole area, you see a lot of curb and guttering starting to take shape. There you go. There's a Bassett Creek Valley Station in the evening. A lot of our stations have that amber light. They look really quite nice in the evening. Sidewalk installation at the last station, the Royalston Avenue Farmers Market in Minneapolis. That's advanced quite a ways. I believe also, if not, I think very soon into 2025, we will have the substantial completion of all 16 stations. So project is over 80% done completely. I mentioned the pocket track earlier. Pocket tracks just on the, just below that water retention pond. And I also mentioned that on the east of that was the HRSF, the Hopkins Rail Support Facility. That's the foundation of that. You can see we've got the parking lot, and they'll continue to build over the next 15 months or so. I think it's around a 40,000 square foot facility there. Thank you. Any questions? All right. John or Elaine?
Yes, so now we will go to the consent business, the DBE presentation.
All right. So slide 16 here, doing the usual, just looking at the slides and the numbers. All of our construction contracts are doing pretty well. The Shaw Lundquist HRSF contract is up and going, and I believe the next time we come through, we'll have some dollars to be able to show here for DBE participation. But right now, we're still, I think, in payout number 2, so waiting for the numbers to come in for the end of the month here. But that's the numbers that we have.
Does anyone have any questions for John on the DBE participation? If not, let's go to the consent business, the non-consent business. Krista, you're up. You want to present on civil
Sounds
contract?
Great. Sure thing. Thank you, Elaine. Alrighty, so DBE is currently on site. This was for the last 2 months, not the current. And my slide was not updated here by council. Anyways, you can see who was on site: E&J, Gunner, MBE, On Call, PWS, Safety Signs, and Stonebrook. Great representation of our strong DBEs that are on the project. Could go to the next slide. This one right here, and again, we know that it's small print, but it's going to be a handout each meeting. Wasn't today, and I apologize, but since the last meeting, there have been no changes for the DBEs that are still working on the project. Thing is, to note moving forward, a lot of them we are not going to be closing out completely because there are going to be items regarding punch lists and other additions that we might have to be calling them. So for some time now, you're not going to see a big change. If no questions on that, then we'll go forward to workforce. As you can see, for our workforce projection participation to date, we are still maintaining right around the 23 to 24% participation with POCI total, and female between 7 and 8%. That has been the same for the last 5 years, with some fluctuations. What's great to see though is when we do month to month participation. So workforce participation for October, about half the hours from September, but our percentages, when you look at the total, maintained 26% and 4.5%. But in a little bit, we'll go into the trade specific. You'll see a great report. So if we want to go to the next one, here it is. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of time real quick to look at this while I talk to you guys. We have 12 trades that were on site in October, 12 trades. Out of those 12 trades, 6 of them, half of them exceeded the POCI goal of 32%. Well, one of them was just below it, excuse me. 6 trades are the blue ones marked. We have carpenters, ironworkers, laborers, painters, pile drivers, and roofers. Out of the remaining 6, 4 of those 6 were actually over 22% POCI participation. So when you think about our numbers dropping, hours and people, we are maintaining a very strong representation of our POCI workforce. This is fantastic to see. When it comes to the female participation, we've talked about it since the first day I started. Highway heavy female workforce is a tough nut. It's not an excuse. It is a tough nut. But the one thing I am going to state for this report for October, female participation from September to October went up 2%, even though the hours decreased. We are maintaining our diverse workforce. Any questions about this information on this slide? Or comments? Okay, on to the next one.
I'm sorry. I had my I got my headset on and I had the thing tipped up because I'm drinking my smoothie. So anyways, I don't have any questions, but I have a comment, because what I hear you saying is, as this project is winding down, both for, the season and just the project in general, and the hours are decreasing, there's no drastic drop off in POC or women employment hours on the project. As a matter of fact, they're maintaining, and in some cases, increase as a percentage. And I do
Correct,
want to say
Ashante. Yep.
that is atypical of what you see on any construction project. So yes, I wanted to definitely say that is like I said, that's atypical. I've never seen that happen. So yes, thanks for highlighting that. And I think it's something that should be recognized and acknowledged. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashante. It was seriously, when I was doing the numbers, I was quite loud doing my own little in the office celebration, and Brian can attest to you because he sits quite a ways away from me. And I think he heard me do the Yahoo. So, and go out to the field, and we've been talking with our subs and our leads out on the project. So seriously, thank you, Ashante. We're starting to see the change that we've been working for quite some time now. So thank you. All right, on to the next one, which just is a quick picture, and again, you guys wanted me to lessen this up a little, which is really hard for me to do because I truly like celebrating our inclusion activities. Other people call them good faith efforts. I consider them inclusion activities. National Apprenticeship Week was a super week. And we get to talk later in this about how many and all that other fun stuff. But we did get to celebrate the fact that we had 3 individuals with LMJV when I went out on the field on our first snow day to give them their donuts. 3 of them there had journeyed up recently, so that was kind of fun. And I talk about it there. The other great thing that has been taking place during that week is the Women Building Success program that we have within our trades. Jenny Winkler is a great part of it, as well as some other awesome people in it. They had their annual trades game challenge over at the Pipe Fitters Training Center. What a fun event. And I highly recommend everyone on this call to attend next year, not only just to see the great representation that we do have with the small numbers, it's going to continue to grow, but to be a part of this great event. We had 8 women from the Lunda LMJV team there from our trades competing, plus 2 additional attendees, myself and Tracy Jackson. You should have seen how much fun these individuals have. These are the type of events when we talk about as a team in the industry, government, unions, associations and such, when we're always talking about retention, what do we do? What do we need to do? This event right here is one of the lead things that needs to be occurring more often. Those outside activities that brings people together, that helps build their relationships with others that they'll be working with on current projects and other projects moving forward. That's one of the key pieces to retention in workforce, are the relationships. Great one. And then, of course, during the holiday season, there's a couple of the key awesome event, galas. One of them was the AWC annual holiday celebration. Way to go, Barb. You guys hit it out of the park again. One of the best networking events. And the American Indian Chamber of Commerce. That was just this last week. Another super one. Way to go, everybody. Seriously awesome. That's all I'm going to say about those, and we'll keep going. That's it. Any questions for me? Otherwise, thank you guys.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Krista? If not, let's go on to Mike Tony to talk about the systems contract.
All right. Good evening. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mike. So it looks like we're doing something here with these pictures. I'm not sure what that is, but that's the tunnel. Okay. Next slide. Some signals, I guess, at Louisiana Station. I don't know if somebody else is supposed to be doing this, but these aren't my slides. But that's a traction power. I'm just reading the titles, but it's a traction power substation.
Sorry, man, I threw those in there. So,
That's all right. That's all right.
All right.
Whatever you want to do.
all
This
right.
appears to be the warehouses over at the Honeywell facility. That's all weight and installation. I don't know if that's at our facility. It looks too big to be our facility, but I think that's the Honeywell facility. where
Yeah,
we
Golden
stored
Valley,
all the
yeah.
equipment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's where we stored all the material, and it's just having everything ready and available to us, while we were being delayed, sure makes it easy to install and just keep the progression going. So we have this huge warehouse at Honeywell where we got all the traction substation, the poles, the cable, everything is stored there, and it's organized, it's large, and it's been very valuable for us just to be efficient. So that's what that is. All right. So as far as our update goes, we participated. We were asked to participate in the advisory meeting for Summit Academy. We did that on October 9th. Through the remainder of the contract, we don't really expect much more than 8,000 craft labor hours per month. It might dip during November, December, but it's pretty much going to hold steady. It's going to be holding steady at that. In September, we had 6,400 hours. In October, we had 6,300 hours. We had run about 31% POCI for both. The female participation was 6 to 9%. So that's what we did for the 2 months. Next, here's our workforce for October. Again, we had 6,300 hours. 8% POCI, 31% POCI, and 8%, almost 9% female participation. Okay, the next slide. Well, that was September. This is October. I'm sorry about the titles, but it's pretty much the same stuff. We're holding consistent. One thing to note is that in November or end of October, Shannon, who had been with us since the beginning of the project for APJV, she decided to move to Texas, so that's going to be a shame. But it is what it is. Next slide, please. So during October and November, these are the 4 DBE subcontractors that we had on the project. We had Gunner Electric, who's been consistent. MBE Trucking with a little bit of hours. Elite, I think they're wrapped up for the season. And then Stonebrook Fronts did a little bit of work, around a traction power substation. So that's who was on the job.
Does anyone have any questions for Mike on the systems project? If not, let us go on to the Hopkins facility, and David Tuffy is going to be presenting for Connie.
Yes, hi everyone. Yeah, so I hope I get a little bit of grace here. Just stepping in for Connie while she's out. So from a DBE standpoint, as you can see here, we're kind of getting off to a slow start with the Hopkins Rail Support Facility. But you can see our DBE numbers here, credited amount 2.5 million, DBE at 18%. Gunner Electric, they have been, as well as PWS, they've been the 2 most forefront of the operation so far from a DBE standpoint. Starting at in September, you can see Gunner Electric, right now they're setting or pouring the duct banks and setting precast transformer pads for our main power, which is appreciated with our cold trailers right now. And we've had Windsor out for a little bit, just trying to get ahead of the 8 ball. And as you can see here, we from POCI standpoint, we're at 16%, women 4%. So we're trying to achieve are, you know, obviously are 18%, if not furthermore. And here's a little bit of a breakdown of that diversity hours by race. And here's our female diversity hours. And I would hope to, as we start picking up pace here, the coming new year, we'll expect to see these numbers rise. So our good faith efforts, September 25th, workforce goal reminder, email sent. October 16th, attended Rosie's and Robbie's of the rail roundabout. And October 29th, construct tomorrow event roster, or, I'm sorry, Rochester. And yeah, so those are our good faith efforts.
Are there any questions for David regarding the Hopkins project? If not, this is the time where we have a committee discussion, and I know that there's a couple of items that were on the agenda. The prompt payment. Well, first of all, the committee meeting dates for 2025. John, do you want, oh, here we go. So here's the schedule for the upcoming meetings. There is one that we need to make a decision on, and that's the June 19th, which is an in-person meeting, and that is Juneteenth, so it needs to be rescheduled. And I open that up for discussion.
Here are my thoughts on it. I would say we can try and find a date to reschedule, but I would be hard pressed if, I'll just say we'll try to find a date that works to be rescheduled. And if we are unable to find a date, I think we need to consider moving it, or we'll play it by ear as things move along, but we will try and find an alternate date.
So one thing I was thinking about this is suggesting that maybe we schedule it on the day before, on the 18th, and because it is a rescheduled date, maybe just making it a virtual meeting rather than in person, given the fact that we do need to reschedule it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that.
Does anyone else have any suggestions or comments?
The only thing about that is that Wednesday, and right now I don't know how this will coincide, but that's the council meeting day. That's both management committee, full council. So again, and right now I don't know if that falls in the same week. So that's why I'm saying let's work on finding a date and proposing it, and then we'll see. But I'd hate to make that commitment as to where we are right now today.
That makes sense.
I'd like to suggest that be a decision made at the February 20th meeting then.
I was going to say the same thing. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Makes sense.
We should do the same thing then, maybe look at, because I don't know if you saw in the chats, the same thing from this last year, October 16th in person. There were some conflicts due to that is the Construction Inclusion Week, and there are many activities that are scheduled not by us, but by others in the industry. So we don't have control over it. And to have to miss some of those activities, which are some of our best inclusion outreach efforts. So maybe put that on the 20th also for discussion.
Yes, I do want to be respectful of that, and February should be plenty of time for us to plan and think about rescheduling that one as well. So yes, let's add that to the conversation for February 20th on our
Thanks,
schedule.
Ashanti. Thank you.
Okay, so going on to the prompt payment discussion. If we're
I can kind of lead since I proposed this. One of the things that we know for sure, and especially on a large capital project such as the Green Line extension, that, you know, payment and prompt payment to subcontractors, and in this case DBEs, are the number one barrier and the number one issue that is cited. It's the issue that I hear most about, both from the contracting community. It's the one that our council members ask about frequently. And as we wind down this project and we're beginning and engaged on other large projects as well, I wanted to get an understanding of, you know, there was a time where we kind of, the council, when I say we provided some information relative to how long we were taking to pay the prime. And then once we pay, then that clock ticks in for the subs. And as someone else pointed out, and I also agree, that it starts with us, or when that pay application or invoice is submitted to the council, and our processes to get that turned around timely. And so I would like to understand where we are, how we've been doing, have we improved over the project, because we've had a lot of conversation and discussion, and has that led to any improvements? And can we figure out, with this time left available, what we can do, at least on the Green Line extension? Yes, we have some input, feedback, ideas that we're proposing for our other large projects, but what's the opportunity here with the short time we have left on this project? So all the way through, from submittal of the invoice or pay app to all the way down to the last tier, I want to be able to understand it and see how we are doing on this project.
Great. Ashanti, I think we have some slides attached, but I think the other piece too, do we have anybody still from the council here that can speak to the amount of time it takes from when we submit, you know, to when we receive a response / payment?
Let me see.
You know, otherwise we can move on and go on to our piece, but.
Is Nick on today? No, it doesn't look like it.
No, he's not on. But I think in general, each pay app is a little bit different. From my experience, if there's a lot of change orders that there are disagreements in about what should be included or not, that sometimes takes some negotiations back and forth, and then also things not being submitted correctly. So I think what we have is anywhere from 30 to 60 days from submittal. And we get submittals on the 10th of the month, and then they review it on the 15th. And then 15th through the 20th is when there's some negotiations. That window is sometimes 10 to 15 days. But then once the pay app is put together and approved, as what we could include for review, then it gets processed and reviewed by the council's staff internally pretty quickly. So for us, what I think the challenge is for the pay app is the point where the contractor submits the pay app and the council agreeing to include or not include. And then once that takes place, we issue payment to the contractor. Then the contractor takes it from there to pay their subcontractors.
That makes sense, John. And I think the one thing though that I want to understand is that there are times, and this is what I'm hearing. So hopefully, and maybe without Nick or someone from his team on the call today, we might not be able to answer this. But from what I hear, sometimes there are times when it could be a dispute over one of the subcontractors or contractors on the invoice, and that holds the whole payment up. And so if we are going to address this or address and utilize best practices, I want to know what the barriers are contractually, and I don't think there are any, to issuing a payment for the undisputed services and then coming back on the next invoice to correct any of the other items. That's to say that one discrepancy that impacts, maybe one should not hold the others as well. So that's part of my thoughts. And then the other thing is, again, there's sometimes when the discrepancy is of a dollar value that is so low, when you're talking about millions and in the totality of the project, $1 billion, again, to hold up a whole pay app for that discrepancy, again, could be an area where we can improve. But those are kinds of things, if we had the information just relative to the basic question of this is the average amount of days over, for 2024 or whatever period we want to measure, that it's taking us, that's still valuable information for us to have. Yes, we understand that there's times when there's disagreements or what we agree to, but what's the average to turn it around? What's happening, including those conversations and disagreements or what have you. So with that, I just think we need to make sure that we can have someone from the project office available for this conversation, but for that part of it at least, and we can move on to the slides that LMGAV has.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
That's what I was
going
to. That's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Ashante.
I guess just to piggyback on that before we move on a little bit there, that I think in the beginning, I wasn't always involved in all the payments, but from what I remember early on, we did have quite a bit of big delay, but we have gotten quite a bit better, as a team, I'll just say, between the council and the JV. And I think that they have a pretty good understanding and consistency in the people that are approving the apps now, so that, the turnaround time from the time we submit the voucher to the time council pays, I think it's been pretty close. It's come down to maybe a couple weeks, but it'd be something we could pull together pretty easy too on our end, just from Luke, when we submit them and when we actually see payment and what's the average. We could probably pull that pretty quickly.
Yep, that makes sense. And that's what I want to understand. I mean, we hear about it, but we don't hear about it until it gets really bad, because DBEs are they don't want to just by nature make waves or, jeopardize certain relationships. So when they speak up, it's bad. I don't want to be in a position to where it gets bad to understand it and know and hear about any barriers or issues as well. But I get that sense, Brian, that it's gotten better, but I'd like to see the numbers and the data
Sure.
to support that.
Yeah, I think the real piece that would hurt DBEs and subcontractors in general is the amount of time it takes us to get a change order lump summed or figured out. Because once a change order has been agreed to on both sides or by all parties, and it hits the voucher, yeah, I mean, it pretty much goes through and it's paid out 100% because it's likely something done in the past. And we're talking change orders are taking upwards of a year plus to get approved on average. That's where I think you could make the most hay, is getting into the change process and fixing that. That's where the delay is. There's millions of dollars sitting in the change department that's over a year old and still being negotiated or trying to be negotiated. I think that's where most of the subcontractors and the DBEs that you're hearing from are. That's probably the grief, because when we get a payment from council, all our invoices are already approved, because basically the contractors invoice the JV, we send it out for approval from our PMs and staff. Yep, this is approved and this goes here, here, there. It goes into the voucher, and once you guys approve that and pay us, they get paid almost immediately. Like checks are cut in the next day. So,
Yep.
So do you have any? Go ahead. I don't.
The change process is the big issue. I think you should fix or talk about how to fix.
Yes. Do you just, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have any ideas in terms of how either we can improve that process, recommendations that we can take in terms of improving that process?
Yes, lots of ideas.
I mean, and I'm asking this seriously because I want to hear them and understand them, and because I mean, make no bones about it. These are the types of conversations and the types of ideas that not only we have to have these conversations with the project office, and understand, what, if any, barriers there are to bringing into any of these recommendations. But also, our leadership here at the council has to understand this, because they ask about this. Believe me, they ask about it. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, and I don't really know how to ask this question, but from the Hopkins Rail Support Facility, from a budgeting standpoint, we were accredited basically $1 million in a mobilization fee. And before I can invoice my first invoice, I had to have my schedule of values approved, which took many, many months. So to get the DBEs paid, I raised my hand and said, how can I invoice to get, my trades paid? And it was agreed that we would take, a sum of that mobilization fee to get us paid currently. But from a contractor standpoint, that piece was notified as a mobilization fee. So we don't know how to pay our DBEs without getting our SOV approved and submitted. So does that make sense?
So you're saying that even with that sum of the payment for your mobilization, you don't know how to pass that payment down to your subs? Is that what I heard?
Correct, because that is from a bidding standpoint, that mobilization fee was for our mobilization. So we've received, a certain sum but how do we pass that certain sum onto our DBEs? Like, like as I noted before, we have Gunner Electric and PWS on site. So how do we get them paid when we've only been paid what we think, from a Shaw Lundquist standpoint, a mobilization fee?
So in other words, you're in the situation that you would have to pay out of the company's funds and not out of the project earnings, because you haven't gotten those.
Correct.
And that's what we've had to do on the LMJV, David. There are multiple times, and Brian can attest to that we've had to actually pay the DBEs before we get paid, just because we know their situations, and with being the DBEs and our relationships, it's a tough nut, but what are we supposed to do, Yeah. So.
And that's kind of the situation that I'm in right now as a project manager. Obviously I want to get my finances right. I want to get my budget right. I want to get everyone paid. But from an internal standpoint, I'm kind of the middleman.
That's why we really got to, and I love that Ashanti and John, you guys are asking this, because that change order process and that it's taking over, and beware, David, that it takes, we have numbers, and it's pretty scary how long some of these change orders are taking, it truly is the elephant in the room. So it's something that really needs to be addressed. It should be a hot button.
Yeah, we've received, well over a $500,000, but, according to our accounting, we can't pay our subs with those funds, because it's shown as a different value.
Yeah, that's a good point, David. Part of the point of that money up front for all the contractors having a mobilization fee is so that they have working money, so that they're working on council's money while they're performing council's job, and that the contractor shouldn't be basically piggy banking the council to keep the work moving, which is what's happening in a lot of cases, especially at startup. If you don't get that lump sum off the bat, you're going in the hole pretty significantly right away before you can start getting enough contract work done to try to dig yourself back out.
Yeah, so I'm definitely listening and taking this to heart, because that's one thing through, our training and education for DBE firms. We're telling them, you need to put mobilization include that into your bids and your costs, and the reasons why that's important. But if you're telling me that the council is not allowing mobilization from the subs to be included in those mobilization payments, then yes, that's I see that as a barrier, and something that we need to have a conversation about. The other part of it is, or the question I have is, relative to the mobilization and saying that you have to have your schedule values approved first. Is that typical with other agencies such as MnDOT, Hennepin County, and other, or is that something unique to the council?
Gilbert has his hand up. I don't know.
Yes, Elaine,
he might be able to answer for Hennepin County.
Yeah, I saw his hand. That's why I included him. Included Hennepin County.
Well, Ashanti, regarding the schedule of values, yes, before the project kicks off, absolutely. That has to be developed and approved by the project manager before the project kicks off. My earlier comment was going to be about the new issues related to this early payment or quick payment that the contractor is presenting here. I think it will be helpful as we are working towards a future state where we will have these issues resolved, to probably listen to what is going on currently from the contractor end, because definitely I'm hearing some new things like this mobilization issue. And so I think it would be ideal to hear some more and to try to learn from what is currently the council's practice and what is being done in the field right now, so we can be informed going into the future. So I definitely want to hear some more, if it's possible to schedule a future meeting to discuss this further.
And Gilbert, I think that Ashanti alluded to that we need somebody from the council. And so we should put this discussion on the agenda for the February meeting.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
No. Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. I think that I was going to make that suggestion at the end of this, but you make a good point.
All right, thank you, Elaine. Thanks, Ashanti. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other part is, and maybe also, I'd like to, it doesn't have to be here at or part of the DWOC committee, but yes, I would bet, and I know I was asking the question, but I knew the answer. I want to hear what the ideas are for improving that change our order process, because my goal would be then to take those recommendations, talk through them with the project office as well as others to see what we can actually implement and incorporate. And if there's any barriers, whether it be contractually or otherwise, that would keep us from implementing some of those ideas. So yes, I think it's important to have the project office be a part of this particular conversation around the process, et cetera. We definitely know the change order process and what that means and how it impacts. We've been hearing about this as well as another issue, so it's something we definitely need to have further discussion on. So we'll keep this on the agenda for February as well. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in our Blue Line extension where I kept harping about this, and Gilbert, you've heard it too. I think that just even hearing today's discussion from, the primes about how all of these change orders, how they're affecting different things, right? So mobilization, that whole piece. This is stuff that we could have been diving into a little bit more. But again, we never seem to get all the right players in the room at the right time. So I'm hoping it's not too late for that contract process that we were working on in that other committee.
No,
sorry. I was just going to say that Mike also has a slide talking about the APJV's process. And I think that we should review that as well and give him an opportunity to present APJV's process.
Yes, I just want to be responsive to Barb's question before we do that, to say that no, it's not too late. And the whole reason I want to have this conversation and understand what can be some of the solutions is because then my job is to figure out how do we work that into our policies, our contract language, and other things to make sure that those process improvements and best practices are actually incorporated and we don't just talk about them. So no, it's not too late.
Thanks.
Go ahead. And then also David has his hand up, so I want to be respectful of that too. He had his hand up. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to take up everyone's time, but I just want to make sure that it's just noted that with the DBE standpoint, we've got change orders that from I think it's PWS and Gunner that are going on 4+ months in review. So they've done the work or they're doing the work, and it's just a long process.
And if I could put another light on that I know directly, because Lee has said it over and over, in that time that they're waiting for those reviews, they're actually incurring interest through their business lines of credit, which at this high interest rate that they're paying right now, which they will never be able to recoup through this. So
Correct.
All right, go ahead. Mike, did you want to cover this slide?
Sure. Interesting stuff. So, I mean, we follow. So let's just do the slide first, and then I can give you my thoughts on the other stuff. But so after the prime receives payment, how long does it take for lower tier subcontractor to repay? Well, we got a prompt payment clause, and so everything that gets in on the pencil copy gets approved. It takes 25, 45 days to get paid by Met Council. We got systems in place. We're paying our DBEs within 10 days, and we're pretty stringent about that. We got internal policies, with Christy, who does a pretty good job, and our project managers, and the relationships with our subs. So it's got to get on the pencil copy. It's got to get approved. They get paid within 10 days of that. Minger, who has lower tier DBE subs, that we've made sure that they're paying their subs when they get paid within 10 days. So that's the note. And then when we don't do it, we got to put it on the waiver form or the pay app, the prompt payment certification form, what the issues are and why they didn't get paid or what's going on and why it's being held up. Could be they don't have material certs. It could be they didn't do this or that, didn't have the waivers, whatever holds it up. We do our efforts to do it. We had some trouble at the beginning with a couple, but it hasn't been an issue for the last 3 years that I'm aware of. So that's kind of where we stand. And then, the building that schedule of values on a big, huge project like that does take time. And, we had Aldridge, APJV had plenty of time to build that schedule of values while we were being delayed. So it didn't have the drastic impact that it had on the civil and what I'm hearing the other Shaw Lundquist go through. So, but you got to have that schedule of values, and the MOBs are part of that. So the APJB has been fortunate with these change orders, to my knowledge.
Hey, Mike, it's been interesting because one of the reasons council gives us for ours taking so long is they have to give first seat to systems since they're currently working on it. That's been one of our reasons from council as to why ours are taking longer from a year ago, is because they're on current things for these systems. So kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah. It takes a while. Change orders take a long time. And if you don't have a vehicle of payment to pay the subs, whether it be an allowance, whether it be an allotment, whatever the case may be. And you guys, Met Council, the change orders you guys have had been significant. They're a huge proportion of the contract. And that takes time, and there's been a lot of, it just takes time, and the TNM kills, not TNM, but force account work. Say, hey, it's got to get done, and you got to do it, and you're stuck, and you just got to get it done. And you don't do it till you have a written, well, you don't have a written change order. It's just not going to happen. So it puts everybody at risk. It puts the prime at risk if they pay them, they're not getting paid, and getting the RE to approve it and all that kind of stuff. There's just so many different factors. And what's the incentive of the RE to approve it? So I wonder about that sometimes. So, it is what it is.
Well, if there's no more, go ahead.
Just a quick point on Mike. He brought up the schedule of values in the beginning there. And in this contract, it's the contractor's job to write that, even though the Met Council writes the spec, which lays out everything that goes in the SOV. I'm not sure why the EOR, as they're designing the project, aren't creating the own schedule of values so they know exactly what they want. then council knows everything they need and want right up front, and doesn't have to guess and wait for the contractor to try to let them know. On a lot of other type of job that is done prior to contract letting. And this is one of those situations that is different than the rest.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule of values, it could change. I mean, from the bidding process and how you bid a job and all the different factors that go into winning the work and what's your front load and what's your back load and all that different kind of stuff. Then to get that all into a schedule of values, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that got to get approved. There's a lot of moving pieces. So it's not just straightforward all the different times. I mean, there's strategies to win these bids. You know, we have significant strategies that make us competitive to win the work. But then you got to put that into a schedule of values. It's got to get approved, and it has to be ironed out. And that takes that process, that approval process of the schedule of values can take time.
Yeah, if I could just talk about the schedule of values for just a second. There wasn't a template for me to create a schedule of values. It was actually provided, probably a month, maybe 2 months after there was just a sample template provided to me, which I had to, obviously recreate and add all of my values to it. So in the specifications, yes, there's a verbiage that kind of lays out the law of the land to create that schedule value, but having a template would have been, much easier on the front end to say, okay, here's a template, use this and add in all your values to it. But that wasn't provided on the front end. So that just added, months to the process.
Right. Okay, I think that's all the slides that I have regarding this, though.
All right, conversation to continue. And go ahead.
No, that's it. No, I was into myself. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. Conversation to continue on that, and we'll definitely make sure the right players are available, because the ultimate goal is to improve the process, and improve the experience of all of those who have to participate, and adhere to the rules, regulations, policies that the council lays out. So we want to make sure that folks can successfully participate, and that any issues are not greatly exacerbated down the line for the smaller folks who have the least ability to weather those types of impacts and storms. So to be continued. The second piece is something also that we discussed and I wanted to bring up, because I think there's some stories to tell, some good stories that we should be telling, both from a council standpoint and from contractors, to say and to be able to demonstrate and talk about the impact that working in the trades and working for them has on individuals and their families. So if there's folks that while working on this project have reached journey level status, that's an awesome story that we can all tell, and that we should all be able to be proud of and be able to tell that story on our terms. So I wanted to understand kind of those two bullets. So I don't know if it's Krista and Mike going to have this conversation, but I'll turn it over.
Oh, I'm ready and I'm excited about it, Ashante. So I'm glad the question was asked, because the story and the many stories about this are quite incredible. So as you can see, this slide right here is for the civil project. This is the LMJV, Lunda, CS McCrossin, and the majority of our subcontractors. We are missing a couple of them, but they're not big ones. Thank you for whoever just gave the clap. So apprentice to journey level for the civil project from start till October, 152. So over 150 individuals went from apprentice to journey level during the project. And I broke it down POCI, almost 31% of those 152 individuals, and female over 11%. Look at the breakdown of the different trades is great, but seriously, guys, 152 individuals journeyed up so far. The great thing is, when looking at those numbers, also almost 50% of that 150 did it from start of their apprenticeship to their journey up. Over half started their apprenticeship on the project. So when we talk about stories, Ashante, we've got them. We have them, and they are great stories. They're a great family. It's a great team. Like I said, walking out on this project is a treat to see the camaraderie, the involvement. And I truly give the success of this to the individuals, of course, because it's not easy work, but I also give the success of this to all of the other individuals that these apprentices, now journey people, have been working with. Their teams are top-notch teams. So thank you for this question, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to be the person to tell this story, the beginning of it. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Krista. I would just have one kind of comment on it. It probably be helpful to have the amount of hours next to these on this, like another column to get there, because, you know, when you see some of these, like, you know, some of these have, you know, a lot of hours it takes to get to apprenticeship, from apprentice to journey level status versus, you know, some others. To give it context, if we had like,
right, the
you know,
tough thing
laborers is
about that,
2,000
Ashante,
hours.
Sorry to interrupt, but the tough thing about it, keep in mind, this is heavy highway construction. And yes, a lot of them have been on here a majority of their hours, but all of their hours weren't necessarily just on this project.
Right.
There are some, you know, that have to go from project to project, you know, because of the schedule, because of weather conditions, whatever. So to give hours, we could give how many hours it takes to go from start, but
yeah, that's what I meant, Krista. Like for the different trades, like, and I don't remember these offhand. Like laborers is like, it's like, please don't crucify me if I'm wrong. It's like 2,000 to get there versus
4,000.
Versus,
and it's all, you know, on the Department of
right,
and that
versus
information
some
right. No, I think that'll be great. I can update that so it has a chart on the side that shows, you know, like you said, add a column. You know, I'll just pull it from our most recent Department of Labor industry, you know, apprenticeship piece that they have. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It just gives it context, because somebody might see and say electricians, there's only 2. Well, I mean, electricians might be 20,000, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It adds context.
Yeah.
I think somebody had their hand up. Was it Johnny?
My bad.
Okay.
That was a mistake.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about this particular slide? Well, thank you, Krista, for providing that information.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
And Mike, I guess, yes.
Yeah. So I did a lot of digging on this. You know, Aldrich has about
Did everybody lose Mike or just me?
No,
I'm
I think
sorry.
everybody.
No, everybody lost him. I had the mute button. Oh, I guess I was there for a second. But, you know, for the job, APJV has about 130,000 hours working on this job since the beginning, since 2021, when Gunner, you know, broke ground and APJV broke ground. So we had 130,000 hours. That you think about that, that's probably 2 months of what, you know, LMJV had. It takes an electrician about 6,000 hours to become an electrician, to go from journeyman to apprentice. Not from apprentice to journeyman. It takes 6,000 hours, some are 8,000 hours. So it usually takes 5 years at full steady work to become a journeyman. So when I went through this exercise, you know, there were probably between 32 to 40 apprentices that have worked on the job that make up that 26,000 hours. Tenzin, who worked for Gunner Electric, he started his apprenticeship program in 2016. He needed 100 hours to jump up to a journeyman on it. He did that in 2021. Jose, his apprenticeship began in 2018. In 2023, he became an IBO journey worker in 2023. And then Chris, he needed 611 hours and became a journeyman in 2024. So he started his apprenticeship in 2019. So it took about 5 years. So while they jumped up to journeyman, you know, they only needed, out of the 6,000 hours, this is what they needed to finish it. So a lot of people, journey level 1, apprentice 2, apprentice 3, they got a lot of hours on this job. And the next slide will show that. So if we can jump ahead to the next slide. So we've worked about 27,000 hours. You know, out of that, you know, 85% were male, 15% were female, 40% were POCI. So, and that's the breakdown of where we stand as far as the racial breakdown of the hours on the job. So they got a lot of hours, but they did not necessarily become journeymen on this project, and may have left and gone other places, you know, worked 3 hours, 5 hours, whatever the case may be. But there were significant, you know, there's 4, 5, 6 that, you know, have over 2,000 to 3,000 hours on this project. So, you know, they're off to a good start. So that's where we stand.
Yeah, I think it's about opportunity as well. Oh, they had the opportunity to get some of those hours on this project. So this project provides opportunities for folks to achieve their journey level status. And that's a story. It might not be, you know, at front of everybody's mind, but that's a story that, again, it's easy to get caught up in all of the numbers and the percentages and goals. But at the very essence, it's about people and individuals. I don't want us to forget that. And I want to be able to tell those stories when we can.
I appreciate that, Ashante. You know that from the get-go. That's what I've always talked. So it's true, and it's great to see these.
Any other questions or comments around that? All right, announcements. Oh, go ahead. Who?
I was just going to say, are there any announcements?
Yes. It's Krista. Christmas is only 6 days away, everybody. So I want to give you an announcement that says Merry Christmas to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Any other announcements? Going once. Going twice. So the next the next meeting is February 19th, and that will be in, I don't think we have any public, no one was signed up to do a public announcement or speak.
Yeah, we didn't get any requests.
Yeah. Oh, it's the 20th, not the 19th. It's not going to be virtual. This slide is wrong. It's an in-person meeting.
That's the 2024 date there, maybe.
Ah, good catch.
Can we go back?
So on the agenda, the next meeting is February 20th, 2025, and it is in person at the project office next to Costco, in case anybody needs. Needs directional.
All right. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I think we had some good conversations here today. I'm always appreciative when I'm able to learn, and I'm always learning from folks in this group and understanding, expect to be held accountable for turning that learning and understanding into some action that improves how we do things in the experience for others that are participating on our projects. So thank you to everyone. Yes, the next meeting, everyone, wishing you a wonderful holiday season and hopefully a safe and wonderful holiday season and enjoy with your family, friends, and loved ones.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy end of 2024, folks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
All right, take
Take
care,
care.
everybody. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks
Happy
all.
holidays.
Bye-bye.